Utila, a tiny dot on a map that most had never even heard of, entered the world stage in 1998 when Hurricane Mitch, the deadliest and most destructive hurricane of the last century, roared into the Bay Islands, leaving a path of destruction in its wake.
Right here, looks like this goddamn hurricane is Laos on us.
They're just bringing in helicopters right now, I guess, from the United States to aid everybody.
But what the world did not know is that a near-perfect storm had already formed earlier that year, with the convergence of three men of vision and gumption. And it's all true, pretty much. First, a little background. Utila is a little island in the Caribbean with more personality than it knows what to do with. A bit wacky at times, Utilians are some of the funniest and most endearing people you could ever hope to meet. They love to dance. They will party at the drop of a hat, and they will share their heart in ways most abundant. Now, about that perfect storm. Rocky Jones, the eldest son of a Utilian seafaring family, inherited his father's charm and unquenchable curiosity about all things.
That's what I told him. He asked me if I wouldn't want to learn to jump. I said, no, that's not my thing. But that's my thing, flying the plane.
Truly a colorful entrepreneur of epic proportions, Rocky was a man ahead of his time, a man with visions and ideas about a better Utila.
I did respect him and admire his vision that he had for the future of this island.
Rocky, he was what we call an entrepreneur, and these days we didn't even know what the word meant, but now we would have called a person like that an entrepreneur.
You know, he was not only a cool guy, I think, a very smart Utilian, you know, business guy, entrepreneur. He was my brother-in-law. He was also, I would say, like my best friend also.
Rocky salvaged the Águila, an island freighter that ran aground on Utila years ago. Where many saw an eyesore, Rocky saw potential.
The Águila that was a very, very cool deal. Rocky wanted the 26,000 bags of cement that was in it for making a breakwater. But nobody in this country thought that he would be able to raise that ship. And he did.
So it came to pass that Rocky sold the Águila to a man on a neighboring island who wanted to sink her. At this point, you might wonder why anyone would want to sink a boat. The Bay Islands are a scuba diving mecca. Beautiful tropical reefs, calm waters, diverse topography, and the enormous variety of aquatic life combine to lure the adventurer. Artificial reefs have been delighting scuba enthusiasts for many years. These reefs quickly become a habitat for many aquatic creatures, all the while becoming and changing, ever different, ever new. So the man on the other island sunk the Águila, where she became a beautiful artificial reef, until she, like so many, became a victim of Hurricane Mitch. Broken up into many pieces, she barely looks like a ship anymore. But I digress. Now, about that perfect storm. Ron Janssen washed up on the shores of Utila about 30 years ago with hardly a penny in his pocket. Now you have to understand, Ron never met a penny he didn't love.
One of the very few things in life that's important. 1 multiplied 14.7 multiplied.
On his way to Utila, Ron met Shirley Cooper, who would end up being the truly great fortune of his life in a bus station.
You know, I was lost, I didn't speak Spanish, and looked at the bus terminal, there she was.
And it was love at first sight.
No, really, I wanted to find out how I had to go to Utila.
That was the first time for me in a Latin American country, and everybody spoke Spanish to me, and so I was completely lost. And then they told me after a few days, you know, why you don't go to Belize? I speak English. And I said, all right, I go to Belize. And then they told me you should go to Tikal in Guatemala, and then, you know, you got the Spanish crap again. And so eventually said, somebody, you know, they speak on the Bay Islands, they speak English.
Ron is the type of man who is enterprising to the umpteenth degree. Never one to sidestep an opportunity, Ron quickly married Shirley and set out to create Ron's world.
buy a little compressor, a few tanks, rent it out to the locals. You know, they was catching fish and lobster.
And that went pretty good, and from one thing went the other. A few people came around, they wanted to see it, so I had a little dory, I took them out diving. And then from one thing to the next thing, it became bigger and bigger and bigger. And before I realized that I had a dive shop.
Ron Janssen got to Utila in the early 80s from Holland. Ron was one of the first guys I met in Utila in 1988. We were renting equipment from him. And man, it was a deal. It was a deal. He had everything we needed. When I stayed on and opened Utila Dive Center, he rented us everything. We've been friends ever since.
Ron is a man that, he's a man somehow like Rocky Jones, you know. Ron is a guy, if he lend you a dollar, he wants you to pay a dollar. If he give you $10,000, that is forgotten about.
One of Ron's most enduring personality traits is that he really doesn't care what people think about him. But as anybody that knows Ron understands, he really does care about people. Fast forward about 20 years. Ron has become a successful businessman, a pillar of the community, and a legend in his spare time.
In the banks, boy, I don't know, sometimes they give you a hard time here in the bank. You know, they have all kind of little rules and things like that, and eventually I couldn't put up with these people anymore. And you know, then there was one thing, I think it was if a woman was pregnant, you can go first in line. And so my daughter went down there, she was working for me in these days, she went in line and she was pregnant and they didn't want to honor it. So she called me crying and I said, oh, don't worry about that, I'll be down there in 5 minutes. And I just closed the bank.
With Rocky's recent success in sinking the Engel, he came to Ron with the idea to sink another one of his boats, the Halliburton 211, this time on Utila. It did not take Ron long to realize what a great idea this was for the island.
Well, he actually came to me, he approached me, and he says, let's make a dive rig out of it. And you know, after a few weeks thinking about it, and I said, you know, yeah, let's do it.
The Halliburton 211 is a cargo boat that ran freight on the Gulf Coast. As the way goes with all boats, her time had come and gone, and she was scuttled.
The Halliburton, Ron got involved with the Halliburton because a mutual friend of ours, Rocky Jones, owned this ship that he wasn't going to refit and he wanted to sell for $60,000. Ron got the idea to do an artificial reef program, and with Jim Engel from the lodge.
Enter Jim Engel. Jim Engel was a rodeo cowboy and dive shop operator from Minot, North Dakota, another diving mecca. Jim bore a gruff demeanor, but had a heart of gold. Jim and his wife, Kisty, bought the Utila Lodge in the early 1990s and upended their family and moved the whole lot, kit and caboodle, down to Utila and never looked back.
We just came in and did the best that we could. The occupancy rate was bad because nobody came here, nobody knew about Utila.
I remember not wanting to come leave my friends in the States, you know.
Yes, I grew up in Utila. I was introduced into the public schools where I learned Spanish from a young old ripe age.
When we first came to Utila, it was Jim and Kisty that helped us to fall in love with the island and helped us to decide to move back here. And for the 10 years that I lived on Utila, Jim was my best friend.
After spending time with Jim and getting to know him, I found out that he was kind of, I guess, a bear. He was big and rough on the outside, but when you actually got to know him, Jim was probably one of the best friends that you could ever want to have.
Jim's nature was to help wherever and whenever, and he quickly became the go-to man on the island. Whenever there was a problem, an accident, an injured person, a fire, a rescue, a poor old woman, Jim was there.
You know, he always wanted to help you. He always had some, if you couldn't fix something, he always found some way. He was very inventive, I believe you call that, to get things solved.
Very good guy to Utila. You know, he was a guy that I always looked up to and depended on.
And on a personal note, back in '98, I got the opportunity to do my IDC course. Jim was working with Mr. E.K. Sowell from Texas. Between Jim, E.K. Sowell, and Hans Utila, that's here today, I got the opportunity to do my instructor course. Here we are 13 years later, and now I have my own dive operation.
After the first fire, Jim realized that we needed the ability to pump seawater to help put out fires because bucket brigades just don't work. So Jim went and acquired the equipment that we needed.
He inspired my passion for the medical field and the medicine and trauma and helping people with their injuries. As when we first moved here, he was the highest qualified medical person on the island, so everybody got dropped off on the end of our pier, and guess who got to deal with it?
So Ron acquired the Halliburton on behalf of the Utila Dive Operators Association. This was a remarkable feat in itself, for in those days, competition was fierce. Agreements were hard to reach and harder still to maintain.
Okay, we used to have dive shop meetings at different places. Whenever the prices would get too low, they would get to ridiculous prices, $79 for an open water course with 4 nights accommodation, 8 dives.
That's very, very true. I mean, price wars was like the thing then, you know? So no, you could never get any dive shop owner to agree with the other.
Yeah, some serious competition going on, you know. We ended up even on the end $99 for 2 days, courses and things like that.
The rec did bring like the 12 shops together and everybody agreed on it and everybody participated in it, so that was a cool thing.
The unanimous agreement that buying and sinking the Halliburton was indeed a worthwhile idea, and then moving forward together was as if the heavens had actually opened up and choirs of angels burst forth in song. For such was the nature of this coalition that they could never, ever agree on anything.
It seemed like at that time everybody was working together. You know, I went to Tegucigalpa, got the environmental permits.
This guy was from one of these environmental institutions, so he had to find a spot, or he had to approve the spot, make an environmental study, impact study or something like that. And so we had to pay all this expense. I think it was something like $1,200–1,300 to bring him down here. And then we had to take him out for a dive. So the guy, of course, never had the tank on his whole. He never had a tank. So I just gave him 40 or 50 pounds on the tank, and we dropped him in the sand, and we just keep spinning around, you know, pretending we were looking at the compass. And when we went up to the surface, we said, "Yeah, that's a good spot." And then we sunk it on a different spot.
They set about the task of readying the boat for her last voyage, cutting holes for easy entry and exits to hold areas, removing wires and cables that could cause entanglement. Reminders to divers to be aware. No stone was left unturned.
One point down broke off of my cartoon. You see, she really hard bought on that.
Jim, I understand you've already broken a couple of ropes here.
Yep, start one that broke too. Got better ropes on it now.
What is going on? The whole island's excited and talking about...
First we have to get this boat off.
Upright and proud, and pretty much floating, the Halliburton 211 made her heroic last voyage to Lighthouse Reef.
Yes, actually I had to come out and captain the Tonya C. Mr. Joni Cooper lent us the Tonya C. The Tonya C 2.
On the day that we sunk the Halliburton, there were probably 200 people or so in small boats on the surface watching the Halliburton go down.
So I think any boat that was steaming around in Utila was present. You know, maybe there were 100, 200 people easy down there.
The 2 buoys for her bow and stern were readied, and the 4-point anchoring system to guide her descent was placed.
In a few minutes we'll be dropping the anchors, hopefully about 150, 200 feet away from the position.
Yeah, so I want to be a little bit more on this side.
And this is what I remember of that day. So I bikes in with my little tug, you know, and I makes the sign. what are you doing? Like, get off the boat, you know? He says, my pumps are in the engine room. So I go like, what? So there he goes, there he works on his, but anyway, he gets his pumps up. I bikes the little boat in, and he steps off, and I tell you, she had about 1 foot of freeboard.
Me and Jim were the two last ones standing on the boat, just before, you know, she went like the Titanic.
To document this event, two morons decided it would be good to be under a sinking ship with cameras. Holding at about 20 feet under the boat and looking up into the sun and a shoal of thimble jellyfish, barely able to discern the hull at all, they waited for the boat to go down. It only made sense for us to be in the water under the Halliburton with video cameras to film its ultimate descent. So there we were, more or less under the boat. There were a lot of thimble jellyfish in the water that day, and the visibility really wasn't very good. Sky and I were probably 20 or 30 feet deep, looking up, looking around for the boat, and we really couldn't see it. Starting slowly, the Halliburton gained momentum and suddenly breached the water and went down like a ton of bricks, with a cascade of bubbles and our two moron divers in her wake. And when she hit the ground, it was as if a volcano had erupted. She landed beautifully right in a sand patch, missed the reef completely, landed upright.
Looked like a volcano had erupted, you know. When a ship hit the bottom of the ocean, it left a cloud of dust from the bottom, and it was so amazing.
Under the cloud of rubble, eerie images of this new life, this new place, this new world were quite breathtaking, as if she was being transformed right before our eyes.
Yeah, and then the wheelhouse is 60 feet and the bottom is, I think, 105 feet on the deepest point in the bow. And almost straight, maybe in a slight angle, not much. It actually makes it even nicer, the slight angle.
The thing I remember best about our first dive on the Halliburton was swimming down through this rubble shower and getting beneath it. And all of a sudden the visibility opened up and you could really see the wreck. And that's when it struck me, wow, this is an awesome addition to the Utila diving community. Diving the wreck of the Halliburton over the next couple of days was truly remarkable. With the volcanic upheaval of dust and microorganisms from the sinking, new seeds of life had been planted as they settled down all over her. Aquatic creatures quickly made the Halliburton 211 their home. "14 years later, she still sits upright and perfect in every way. Transformed into a strange and beautiful life form, she is home to an ever-expanding and diverse ecosystem." Jim Engel passed away in 2007. To honor Jim for all the times he was there for the island and its people, a bronze plaque was created to be placed on the Halliburton in memory of a great man who died before his time. Many gathered the night before the placement of the plaque to tell stories and to remember Jim for all that he was and the memories of him that will ever remain in our hearts.
We're here right now honoring my great buddy Jim Engel. He was an individual that you could always count on in times of trouble, and beyond that, he was just a great, great friend.
An incredibly touching experience, being able to be there and to see how much everybody around cared for him and respected him and valued and cherished his friendship and his life. It means so much to myself, and it has been an incredibly emotional week.
5 years ago when he passed away, it was one of the saddest moments in my life. He was a good friend of mine, and Jim, tomorrow we're going to put the play down there and take a look at it. All right, thanks.
Very appreciative for all the support and all the amazing friends that we have due to our father's relationship with other people.
Yeah, you know, I got so many great memories of Jim and did so many great things with him, you know, like he always took me along with him, and it was actually a really special privilege and honor to be everywhere he was most of the time, you know. Him and my dad, they got along really well, and now both of them are gone, you know. Sometimes I just think about them and wish they were here to give me more advice, you know. Everything I know today, I basically have the thanks to give to them, you know.
I miss him and Willie very much because we were like, Mr. Jim was like our dad, Willie was like my brother, my best friend, and I miss them a lot.
When Jim passed away, you know, we talk about a hero, you know, Utila lost a really, really good citizen.
I'd really like to thank all of the people that were individually involved in all the way from the party that we had, the shipwreck party that we had, to tell stories about Jim, the people that came out for that. It was fabulous hearing them stories. It was very touching, and from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate them and their efforts, and I just want them each and individually to know that they were a great part of making everything turn out the way that it did.
And every year we would come back and we would stay here, and it was always like coming home. It always made us feel welcome and like we were truly their friends. So here's to Jim and Kirsty for everything. We love you.
On September 5th, 2012, Jim Engel took his last dive.
Rick's putting the washers on the bolts so we can not lose them when we go down.
Putting a plaque here on the Halliburton, it's going to be something to memorize Jim by. So we'll go down there as a team and set it up for him.
Just like when the Halliburton was sunk, it was a perfect day. 35 divers were in the water to be part of this moving event. From all of us that knew and loved him, it is our hope that whenever someone dives the wreck of the Halliburton, maybe even 100 years from now, they will surface and ask the question, who was Jim Engel? We lost Rocky Jones in 1999, and with his passing, the island lost a truly gifted visionary.
He was too advanced for his time. There was nobody, in his time, there was nobody else on this island that could see the future like how Rocky could see it. He was very special to us. He was our hero in our family. As I married Troy and we got into the tourist business on the island working for my brother, it was amazing to work for him because he just wanted to see people do well. He wanted everybody to do well.
So in the end, this is a story about heroes. Everyday heroes. The hero in us all. What we do, what we strive to do, it makes a difference. May we all strive each and every day to make this world a better place. For Rocky Jones and Jim Engel, we shall never forget you. For Ron, get back to work.